Hello everybody, this is Lara with a quick update for Bitcoin. I haven't been giving you content for a little while because it's been really hectic for me for the last month, but I am settled now for the next 2 months at least, if not longer, and so I should be able to give you regular once a week content and hopefully a little bit more. Hopefully I can start to cover some other coins as well from time to time. Looking at Bitcoin recently, I expect that this low for week beginning 6th of April is extremely likely to remain intact for the long term. About this low, support about 78,000, a couple of strong hammer bullish reversal candlestick patterns, and then price closed to new all-time highs at the daily time frame. The last completed week here completes a bearish reversal pattern in dark cloud cover, so I expect we may have a little pullback to test some support around about 100,000. There is also some pretty good support about 90 to 92,000. So we could see a pullback a little bit further lower down to that area. When we look at the daily chart, it looks like we might see more downward movement for the short term. But overall, my analysis for Bitcoin remains very, very bullish, and I'm still holding on to my own investment in Bitcoin. Toward the previous all-time high in the end of November, or mid-November last year, volume was strongly pushing price higher, but at the last all-time high a couple of weeks ago, volume was strongly declining back from November last year, so there's some bearish divergence here. That's a little bit concerning for the longer term outlook for Bitcoin, to be honest. There's no new range I can reasonably draw for on-balance volume. To draw a range across these pivot highs and these pivot lows, the trend lines would have far too steep a slope and not enough tests to have any technical significance. So no new range, no new signal at the weekly time frame. ADX is telling us there's an upward trend in a relatively early stage, a very long way to go before this trend reaches as extreme as it can get for Bitcoin. There's double bearish divergence between price and RSI for the close for the week beginning 18th of May. We could see another bear market develop here with this kind of bearish divergence after RSI reached reasonably overbought. That is possible. There's also some strong double bearish divergence with price and money flow after money flow reached overbought. ATR was declining to the last all-time high, so there is weakness in that upward movement. This is bearish for the short to mid-term for Bitcoin, but overall for the long term I am still bullish. Looking at daily technicals, there was this pretty strong channel containing this upward movement, strongly breached by downward movement. It looks like we're having a counter trend movement in the larger secular bullish run. The short-term picture from the moving averages is bullish with the short above the mid, above the long. Very recently there's been a golden cross as the 50-day moving average crosses above the 200-day moving average. This is very bullish. But just a word about golden cross and death cross signals. Because we're using 50 and 200-day moving averages here, they're really lagging indicators. Give them least weight in your technical analysis because they are such lagging indicators. The death cross happened just a couple of days before price found a low, and then this bullish engulfing candlestick pattern gave a strong indication that the downward movement was over, and that was followed by new all-time highs. So that's what I mean by a really seriously lagging indicator. It was only telling us, yeah, there was a bearish movement right at the end. This golden cross has happened just before price found an all-time high. It doesn't mean that we can't move into a bear market again now. It's just telling us that yes, this was quite a bullish movement, and it was. Price closed to new all-time highs on the 22nd of May when the closing price was 111,722.11. Well, actually the 21st of May it closed to new all-time highs just over 109,000. Currently, this downward movement could just be a relatively short-term pullback within a larger ongoing bullish trend, but that bearishness on the weekly tells me to be aware that it could move into another bear market. So far looking for support about 100,000, strong support below about 92,000. For the short term, volume is pushing price lower, so I expect we may see some more downward movement. But again, I keep saying on this channel, Bitcoin's lows are really hard to identify, and that's because its interim lows in bear markets can look the same as the final low within a bear market. Interim lows and final lows are often accompanied by a push in volume. This is bearish, but that will happen at the low, and so at that point you should be reading it as bullish, but there's no way to tell if price is going to continue lower with further pushes from volume or you've finally found the low. Overall, volume has been declining. We see this on the weekly time frame as well. Here's a bearish signal from on-balance volume, so some bearishness at the weekly chart, and now I give this reasonable weight, a bearish signal from on-balance volume as it breaks below the purple support line, which is fairly long held, close to horizontal, and has a fair few tests. At the daily time frame, ADX now indicates Bitcoin is in a downward trend. There's a little ways to go before RSI reaches oversold. There was no short-term bearish divergence at the daily time frame between price and RSI, but there was between price and money flow. Both RSI and money flow index are neutral. I will expect we could see continuing downward movement a little bit further, potentially moving into a technical bear market. Bitcoin's has had a lot of those within the larger secular bullish market. Bear markets technically are a reduction of 20% or more of market value. And the last one we had ended in April last year. We certainly could have another one for another month, 2 or 3 months this year before Bitcoin's ready to break again to new all-time highs. So I'll be using RSI and money flow and wait until these get close to or near or at oversold, and then may exhibit some bullish divergence before downward movement may be ending. ATR initially up off the low from April 2025. Initially ATR showed some decline, but toward last movement to the last all-time high, ATR did start to improve a little bit. Now as prices moving lower, a little bit of a decline in ATR for the short term. Volatility is a lot less in this market than it was a year ago. Volume and volatility currently are not in this market. I'm going to read that as bearish for the short term but bullish for the long term. Because bearish for the short term because the market is currently weak, but I'm expecting, my Elliott Wave count expects Bitcoin's in the early stages of a big third wave. It's at the end of second waves that you usually see derision and dismissal of a market, but we're seeing it here for Bitcoin when it's just recently made all-time highs. That doesn't make sense unless you put it in context with Elliott Wave. At the end of a second wave and the start of a third wave, I would be expecting to see light volume, low volatility, disinterest in the market, as everyone expects it's just going to be bearish, very, very bearish, right before it takes off for an absolutely huge third wave. So for the longer term, I am still very, very bullish on Bitcoin, but for the short to mid-term, I'm expecting we could see some more downward movement. So use these areas of support. If price closes below 100,000, expect overall more downward movement to 92,000, about 90,000, strong support. Below that, 87,500. Below that, 80,000. Look for RSI and money flow index to get close to or reach oversold and potentially to exhibit some bullish divergence before we find the low. Look also for strong bullish candlestick reversal patterns. That's it for me today. I'll be back with you next week, about Thursday or Friday next week, and I hope you're all looking forward to a lovely weekend.